Hello everyone. So today we are going to discuss the histology of the adrenal gland. The adrenal gland are two in number and they are present on top of the kidneys. The adrenal gland is an endocrine gland that secretes both steroid hormones and catecholamines. Each of the gland is covered with a thickened connective tissue capsule from which trabeculae extend into the parenchyma carrying blood vessels and nerves. Now if we look at the cross section of the gland, we can see that the gland has got two distinct regions, the outer cortical area, which is about 90% of the weight of the gland, and the inner medullary area, which is about 10% of the total weight of the gland. Both these regions are also different in their embryological origins. The cortical area is derived from the mesodermal mesenchyme and the medullary area is derived from the neural crest cells. Now let us see the slide of the adrenal gland. If we look closely in the cortical area, we can see that the cortical area can be divided into three distinct zones. This is because of the presence of the different cells and the way these cells are arranged. Let us take the example of zona glomerulosa. It is the zone that is present right underneath the capsule of the gland. It is roughly about 15% of the total cortical volume. The cells that are present within this zone are relatively small and columnar or pyramidal. These cells are arranged in ovoid clusters or curved columns that are continuous with the cellular cords of the zona fasciculata. The cords or the ovoid clusters have got a rich sinusoidal capillary network present between them, so that the cells can pour in their secretions directly into the bloodstream, and the bloodstream can carry these secretions away from the gland to their target organs. That is basically how an endocrine gland functions. The cells of the zona glomerulosa have got abundant smooth endoplasmic reticulum, mitochondria, and they have got lipid droplets, but these lipid droplets are sparse. Underneath the zona glomerulosa, there is a thick band of cells which is called the zona fasciculata. The cells of the zona fasciculata are large and polyhedral, and they are arranged in long straight cords which is 1 or 2 cells thick, and these cords are separated by sinusoidal capillaries. Binucleate cells are also common in this zone. Electron microscopic studies have revealed characteristics that are typical of steroid secreting cells. That is, these cells have got highly developed smooth endoplasmic reticulum, mitochondria, cytoplasm which is acidophilic, and it contains numerous lipid droplets. But these cells appear vacuolated in routine histological sections because of the extraction of the lipid during the process of dehydration. Underneath the zona fasciculata, we have the zona reticularis, which is about 5% of the total cortical volume. This zone has got cells which are smaller than the cells of the zona fasciculata, and these are arranged in anastomosing cords which are separated by the fenestrated capillaries. Both light and dark cells are present in this zone. The dark cells contain abundant large lipofuscin pigment granules. The central portion of the adrenal gland is called the medulla. The adrenal medulla contains large pale staining epithelioid cells called the chromaffin cells. These cells are named so because they react with chromate salts. When the gland is fixed with potassium dichromate, these cells become or take up a light brown color because of the oxidation of the catecholamine containing granules that are present within the cytoplasm of the cell. This reaction is called the chromaffin reaction, and these cells are called the chromaffin cells. The chromaffin cells are derived from the neural crest, just like the postganglionic neurons of sympathetic and parasympathetic ganglia, and therefore they can be considered as ganglion cells that lack dendrites or axons. Since these cells lack dendrites or axons, they resemble a typical endocrine cell. Numerous myelinated presynaptic sympathetic nerve fibers pass directly into the chromaffin cells of the medulla. These nerve fibers secrete acetylcholine and that triggers the release or exocytosis of the secretory vesicles that contain the catecholamines. This process is activated by the sympathetic axons in response to fear or acute emotional stress, causing them to release catecholamines like adrenaline and noradrenaline. The release of these chemicals prepares an individual for the fight or the flight response. The chromaffin cells are organized in ovoid clusters and in short interconnecting cords. The blood capillaries are arranged in intimate relation to the parenchyma. There are two populations of chromaffin cells. One population contains large dense core vesicles and they secrete the noradrenaline or norepinephrine. The other population of cells contains vesicles that are less dense. These secrete the adrenaline or the epinephrine. Now let us talk a little bit about the blood supply and the arrangement of the blood vessels within the gland itself. The adrenal gland is supplied by the superior, middle and the inferior suprarenal arteries. The blood vessels branch before entering the capsule, and within the capsule they again branch and they give rise to three principal patterns of distribution. First, we have the capsular arteries that supply the capsule itself. And then we have the fenestrated cortical sinusoidal capillaries that supply the cortex and drain into the fenestrated medullary capillary sinusoids. Cortical sinusoidal capillaries, they surround the cells of the cortex and they carry the secretions that are being produced and poured into the capillaries from the cortical cells. And then they go into the medulla to drain into the medullary capillary sinusoids. The third is the medullary arterioles. These arterioles traverse the cortex and traveling within the trabeculae they reach the adrenal medulla. They bring with them arterial blood. Therefore, the medulla has got dual blood supply. Arterial blood from the medullary arterioles and the venous blood coming from the cortical sinusoidal capillaries that have already supplied the cortex. The venules that arise from the cortical and medullary sinusoids drain into the small adrenomedullary cortical veins that join to form the large central adrenomedullary vein, which then drain into the inferior vena cava. Now I have forgotten to mention two things. First is that the adrenal medulla not only contains the chromaffin cells or the medullary cells, they also contains the ganglion cells. And now these ganglion cells have got processes that go all the way up to the adrenal cortex and they supply the cells and the blood vessels over there. And the second thing is that the secretions that are being secreted by the cells of the three zones of the adrenal cortex. The zona glomerulosa cells, they will secrete the mineralocorticoids. The zona fasciculata cells will secrete the glucocorticoids, and the zona reticularis cells will secrete the weak androgens. So these are the three secretions that are being produced by the different cells of the three zones of the adrenal cortex. Now this is all about the histology of the adrenal gland. So in a nutshell, we should know that the adrenal gland has got two parts, medulla and the cortex. Cortex has got three zones: zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata, zona reticularis. Zona glomerulosa has got cells that are arranged in ovoid clusters or curved cords and they secrete the mineralocorticoid. Zona fasciculata has got cells that are arranged in long cords, either one or two cells thickness, and they secrete the glucocorticoid. And the cells of the zona reticularis are arranged in anastomosing cords and they secrete the androgens. The cells of the adrenal medulla are mainly the chromaffin cells or the medullary cells. Some ganglion cells are also present. The chromaffin cells are of two types. The ones that contain the dense core vesicles will secrete the noradrenaline, and the ones that do not contain the dense core vesicles will secrete the adrenaline. So this is all about the adrenal gland. I hope you liked the video, and if you have any doubts, please put it into the comment section down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for your patient listening. Thank you.